It's just genetics, bro. Mate, I would totally get those results if I had that guy's genetics.
What are the actual components that determine genetics in bodybuilding? What's up, guys? I thought I'd talk about genetics and what actually goes into determining whether someone has quote unquote good or bad genetics. It's a term that's thrown around a lot, especially in this space. And I think when someone says, oh, that guy has great genetics, we kind of know what they're talking about. But let's take a deep dive and actually look at what determines good or bad genetics when it comes to bodybuilding. First up, we have the type of muscle fibers themselves. There's three types. You have type 1, which is slow twitch. You have type 2A, which is kind of in the middle. And you have type 2X, which is fast twitch. And each muscle group has different distributions of these fibers. For example, the quads, glutes, calves, and shoulders have a higher density of type 2 fast twitch muscle fibers. No doubt there's evolutionary underpinnings there too, shaped by the need for explosive power while performing key survival tasks like trying to escape a predator or chase down a prey with the quads and glutes and calves, or trying to throw a rock or a spear or even a punch with the delts. But why does this actually matter in bodybuilding? Well, type 2A and especially type 2X are the most responsive to hypertrophy and weight training. So individuals with a higher distribution of these types of fibers do respond better to resistance training, particularly in terms of muscle growth and strength. Now, this might seem a little bit abstract to just talk about, but here's a good example of what this actually looks like in practice. Now, I'm really into MMA, and for you guys that are as well, you'll probably know these two fighters, Hector Lombard and Nick Diaz. Why am I talking about these two? Well, Hector Lombard is very type 2X dominant. He's very explosive, heavily muscled, and is known for short bursts of aggression and knockout power. But that actually comes at the cost of fading in longer fights, because that type of muscle has a very high oxygen demand, high power, low endurance. Although the guy's a fighter, I've got no doubt that he could step on a bodybuilding stage and do well. And on the other hand, we have Nick Diaz and his brother Nate Diaz. And to me, they represent classic slow twitch type 1 dominant muscle fibers. High endurance, relentless pace to just drown guys in pressure, volume striking with great cardio, thriving in long drawn out wars, but much less explosive and immediately dangerous as Lombard. If they were to fight, I would say that if Lombard couldn't get the knockout in 1 or 2 rounds, which he's certainly capable of doing, he would eventually be overwhelmed and drowned by the relentless pace and cardio of Nick Diaz. And while most people have a mix of both types of fibers, this is just an example of guys at different ends of the bell curve to help illustrate the difference. Next up, we have bone structure. Certain bone structures are more favorable than others, especially when it comes to bodybuilding. And I would say this is probably one of the few areas where I'm quite genetically blessed. I have wide shoulders and a small waist, and it gives me that V-tapered look, which is sought after in bodybuilding. Some guys aren't so lucky with that, and unfortunately, it's something you can't really do anything about, aside from try and develop your medial delts. But even that will only take you so far if the underpinning bone structure itself isn't there. There's some guys with really crazy shoulder to waist ratios. Basically, look at any high level physique competitors. They're elite in that category for that very reason. Look at guys like Jeremy Buendia and Sadiq Hadzovic. Absolutely crazy shoulder to waist ratios. Next, we have the shape of the muscle belly itself. A good example of this is long and short muscle bellies in the biceps. A classic example of top tier bicep genetics is none other than Arnold. Absolutely crazy peak on the biceps. On the other hand, if anyone knows Trenemy number 1 here on YouTube, entertaining guy if you've not seen him, he's a good example of long muscle bellies on his biceps. And you can see it when he flexes. There's not really a peak there, despite having a lot of muscle mass on his arms. And that's not to say he isn't training hard. That's just the shape of his muscle, and he can't do anything about it. I'll see fitness influencers say stupid shit like,
Or do this exercise and it'll give you a crazy bicep peak.
It's like, what the are they talking about? You can't change the shape of the muscle. You can only make what already exists bigger. But when they claim you can like mold the actual shape, it's just clickbaity nonsense. And really, this applies to any muscle group. Going back to that previous example, you could argue that Trenemy has much better delts than Arnold. So everyone's blessed in certain areas. But the guys that you would say have elite genetics, usually every muscle group is top tier. Joint size, then. The size of your joints also plays a factor. Your ankles and your wrists. Using myself as an example, I've actually got little Asian woman wrists. They're 6 inches. But what that does, it actually makes my forearm look bigger than it actually is because it creates an illusion due to the contrast between the size of the forearm and the wrist being more exaggerated. We can even talk about genetic variations of the tendon and joint integrity itself. Tendons are mostly made out of type 1 collagen, and there's gene variations which affect the quality, elasticity, and durability of tendon tissue as well. Some people are just always getting injured, and it could be nothing they're doing wrong in terms of form or technique either. It could just be their genetic variation of tendon integrity. My brother actually has a genetic condition called Ehlers-Danlos, which affects the integrity of connective tissues, which makes him super prone to injuries. So he's got to be super careful when he's training. So there's things like that as well. Next, you've got myostatin expression. Myostatin is a protein that inhibits muscle growth and almost sets a soft cap on how much muscle you can grow in a certain time period. So individuals with lower myostatin levels or even myostatin gene mutations can grow much more muscle. Dallas McCarver's a good example. I'm pretty sure that guy had a myostatin gene mutation going on. Absolutely crazy size. And I've got no doubt that most of the top open class Olympia competitors have much lower myostatin levels as well, and a lot of other genetic advantages. Next up, hormonal environment. Higher androgen levels give much higher protein synthesis rates. That's why steroids work. But there's also factors within that, like how do you respond to the activation of the androgen receptor itself? You hear people talking about hyper-responders to gear, and on the other end, because remember it's a bell curve, non-responders. Some guys will do a cycle of 500 tests and put 30 or 40 pounds of mass on, and on the other hand, guys will do the same amount and maybe put on 10 pounds of water and get a load of side effects and then have to come off. And you've got a blend of the two. Guys, they maybe blow up on gear, but they always have to come off because they get a load of side effects. Maybe they break out in acne every time, blood pressure might shoot up, and they end up having to cut the cycle short and come off despite getting amazing results. So genetic response to gear is something to factor in as well. On the nutrition side, you've got fat distribution, that's genetic. Metabolic rates and thyroid function can influence how lean you stay on a bulk or how easy it is to cut. You have nutrient partitioning as well, which refers to how efficiently your body directs nutrients towards muscle growth versus fat storage. And even this is genetically predetermined. Some people naturally digest food and absorb nutrients better than others, which is more beneficial to muscle growth. And while supplements like prebiotics, probiotics, and glutamine can improve gut health, genetic differences in digestion and metabolism still play a significant role. Then you've got how different people handle carbs. This ties in with insulin as well. How efficient is your body at turning the carbs that you eat into muscle glycogen instead of being stored as body fat? There's genetic factors to all of these to consider too. So elite bodybuilding genetics would be a favorable combination of all of these variables. A dominance in type 2 muscle fibers, a great bone structure with good muscle insertions, good tendon and joint integrity to support prolonged and consistent resistance training, low myostatin expression, and a really good response to androgens with very few side effects, along with excellent nutrient partitioning and an efficient metabolism. It's not that uncommon that guys will have one or even two of these variables in their favor. But what is very rare is guys that land at the top end of the bell curve on every single one of these criteria. And that's really what I would consider winning the genetic lottery in bodybuilding. And I know it can be easy to be like, oh, well, I don't have any of these, so I'm just not going to bother. That's a terrible mindset, and you absolutely should play the hand that you're dealt the best that you can. Sure, you can sit around and be bitter about it, but what's the alternative? There's none. I actually made a video about why I think almost anybody can get a top 1% physique if they put the work in. So check that video out if you've not seen it. If you want me to go into more detail with anything here, I certainly can do. Just drop it in the comments and let me know. If you've learned something, drop me a like and subscribe for more of this content. For coaching, consultations, and sourcing, check out my blog, enhancedplayer.com. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.